Hello everyone, my name is Mohamed Ahmed and I'm St. Cloud State University senior student. Actually, so I'm graduating this spring and actually I had an internship experience. So I got offered an internship by my company, Fulfillment Distribution Center, FDC, and then I had the experience for the last 3 or 4 months. So I will be explaining to you guys the experience I had from the internship. So for the following slides, if we go into the next slide, which will be mostly updating computers. So I had to update computers. So we have around 6 to 7 departments, around or 8 departments in our company, and I had to go into every department to make sure that they had the right version, the new one. So the old one that they had was 20 H2 version. So I had to switch it into 21 H2 version, and mostly here is the steps that I took. So I went to Chrome and typed in Update Assistant. So after doing that, then I had to download Windows 10 version 21 H2. Then after doing that, then I had to run it. Then I had to wait for like an hour in order for it to restart again and the new version to go into effect. So mostly there were like a lot of computers and it took me a while to do that, but I had to make sure that I do it in the right way. So if we go into the next slide, which will be working on computers using ConnectWise. So during my internship, I got introduced to ConnectWise. ConnectWise allows you to resolve any IT issues in the company without you even losing a small sweat. So you can, and without even you moving from your station, you can fix another computer that is very far away from your station. So when you log into it, you will have to click into the access tab for the computers to be visible. So you will click on the access tab. It has like a lot of computers, mostly every computer, mostly it has the departments, it has the category of the departments. Then when you click into a certain department, it's going to show you the computers that they have. So it has the computer names and locations as well as the main users. ConnectWise helps out in making services quick and simple. It's a remote monitoring and management RMM software. Its security system is reliable and keeps your data safe and private. So it really helps you make sure that everything that you have is very safe and in the right place. So mostly no one can steal your stuff, and there's no one that you can do a lot of stuff, like a lot of things into your stuff. So it's gonna make it very safe. So if we go into the next slide, mostly I had to run a script to change settings in registry. So mostly to run a script, here's the steps that I took. Open File Explorer. So I have to open File Explorer first. That is the first step that I took. Then in the File Explorer, I had to enter URL company's name, which is my company FDC, with a number. For example, let us say 100. Then I had to backslash. Then at the login, you had to like there was a username and password that I have to provide in order to log into it. Then there was like a folder that shows up when you log into it. That folder, it has a name, IE mode settings folder to the desktop. Mostly you just copy the folder into the desktop. So you just take the folder into the desktop. You open another file explorer. So I have to open another file explorer to the C drive. Then I have to copy a file by the name mostly sites.xml to root of C drive. So I had to do that. Then I had to double click the EI mode IRG to import settings into registry. Be sure to do this as the window login user. So then I had to reboot. So in order to reboot, I had to restart the computer again. Then I had to make a shortcut on the desktop, change the default browser to Edge. So I had to change it to Microsoft Edge. Then I had to type in http I+S, and you should see it open in the IE mode as shown with the IE11 logo to the left of URL and the URL bar. Then I had to test. Then in order to test, then I had to use username and password. Then I had to make sure to delete all Internet Explorer. So in order so that since I created a new one, I have to like delete the all Explorer I plus shortcut. Mostly then I had to delete the AI media settings, AI mode settings folder on the desktop. So I had to delete that one too. If I go to the next slide, mostly setting time clocks. So mostly in a company, we have around 10 time clocks around the company, and I had to mostly make sure that they were in the right time, the correct time. In order to do that, I went to the communication room, make sure the time is correct. If not, hit the clock mode and add or subtract the minute. So I had to add a minute, or I had to subtract the minute that was missing, and hit the mode twice. So I had to hit the mode twice. I went around the company, since we have like 10 time clocks, and make sure that they were all correct. So I spent a little time each and every one of them to make sure that they were in the right time. So for the clock, mostly we have employees mostly who usually coming into the company. So each and every employee, they usually punch in, and in order for them to punch in the correct time, we as the IT specialists, we have to make sure that they were punching in the correct time and everything was correct, because we just don't want the company to miss money. And in order to not miss money, because someone may punch out 9:59 and the clock says 10 o'clock, and we miss 1 minute, and we just don't want to miss that minute. So I have to make sure that it was correct. If I go to the next slide, which will be banning CDs, mostly DVDs. So I spent some time banning CDs, and so the following steps is what I took to ban CDs. I had to insert a blank CD/DVD that has enough space into computer CD/DVD RW drive. Then I had to open File Explorer. I had to open File Explorer twice each side of the screen to copy and drag the files from one Explorer to C drive. Click on the share on the top left corner of the File Explorer and click on Ban to CDs. I had to take a copy of the pages printed and place the CD back to its cover. So mostly when it comes to CDs, I had like a lot of CDs to take care of, because my manager, my IT manager, she provided me a lot of mostly her name is Sheila. So she gave me a lot of CDs, and I had to ban all those CDs, and it took me a while to do that. If we go to the next slide, which is creating new users. So I had to create new users. So in order to do that, mostly we have a lot of people who log into the computers in our company, and in order for them to log into computers, we had to make sure that they had the right username and password. So I had to create new users. So during my time in the IT department, I had created various users of employees following the request of the IT manager. I used remote desktop to create users. So I used remote desktop, which really helped me a lot to make sure that I created the new users. These are the steps that I followed to create the new users. So first I had to log into the computer, then I had to sign into the desktop, the remote desktop, search active. So I had to search, look for Active Directory, then I had to right click users. So mostly when I go to Active Directory, I had to right click users. Then I had to right click new users and type in the users information. So I had to put their name, their last name into the users, and then I had to hit OK. So mostly when I create the users, and I create their mostly their mostly the names and what they have to log into the computers. Then I was going into the the department that the users are from. Then I was going direct to the users, to the people, make sure that then I was creating a password, a fake password. So when they're trying to log into their computers and they use the password, then it's a one-time password. So when they're done with their password, they have to create their own password in order to use their account. So if I go to the next slide, which is creating emails and deleting them from users. So I had to create emails, as well as I had to delete emails. So mostly we have employees that are going higher, so they get promotion. So when they get promotion and they come from the like packaging and all that, they go into the office or just using an email, time to use an email, then I had to make sure I create an email for them. So in order to create the email for them, and I had to go into mostly I have to use there's certain things that I have to use. So there's like employees who leave the company. So they leave the company. So when they leave the company, I had to delete them out of the system, out of the email system. So I had to do that. So I created new user emails as well as deleted them. So mostly whenever an employee gets promoted or no longer uses email. So in order to do that, I use Microsoft Exchange to create delete emails. So our Microsoft Exchange was linked to our Active Directory. So when you create or delete a person in Active Directory, it does the same to Microsoft Edge. So mostly I had to use Active Directory to do that again too. So I had to use Active Directory in both ways. So if we go to the next slide, mostly which is color coding. So color coding is one of the most interesting things that I learned during my internship. So it's something that I really, I struggle a lot with color coding, but I had to keep it, mostly since I'm colorblind. So it just gave me hard time to do that too. But at the same time, like color coding was one of the things that I really liked the most. So for the color coding, I got introduced to internal cable structure and color coding. Inside the internet cable, there were like 8 color-added wires. So there were like 8 of them. They were twisted into 4 pairs of wires. So there was a blue wire, there was a brown, there was a brown wire, there was a green wire, orange, and orange wire. The wires were twisted together. So they were twisted together like this. So like you can see into the screen, they were twisted into each other. So it took me a whole minute to straighten them out. So it took me a minute to straighten them out. The following methods mostly are what I use to wire the internet patch cables. So first I stripped off about 2 inches of the internet cable sheet. I then untwisted the pairs to straighten them to the same length. So I have to make sure they were in the same length. So in order to do that, when I try to strengthen them, then I had to make sure that they were in the same length and in the in the right order. So they have to be in the right order, the same length. Then I had to cut them. Then when I cut them, then after twisting, I used pliers to cut them to make sure that they were in the same length. Then I then inserted the wires into RG45 plug. So RG45 plug is like a tool that you use to make sure that the wires go into all the way into the cable. And so making sure they were in the correct order. So just it helps you to make sure they are in the correct order as well. Then I crimp the RG45 plug into the crimper tool. So I use the crimper tool to crimp it out. The wires had to be in the front of RG45 plug, so they have to be all the way into the front. So I had to use that, make sure that they were all the way into the right front. So if I go to the next slide, which is using toners to trade wires. So mostly for wires like that are from different locations. So let's say we have like 7 communication rooms. Mostly I had to use the main communication room. So for the main communication room, and so I had to go to the computer, make sure that then I used this test mode. Then I take the test mode, and you see at the front, then I had to plug in the front to the socket to the internet. Then after that, I take the toner. Then I go all the way to the communication room. Then when I go to the communication room, I just put the toner into mostly the wires that we have there to make sure that I find the right wire. So I went to, like you can see from the picture, the toner helps you make sure that you can find. So it produces a noise. So when that noise comes out, that means that you got the right wire. So when you go into, when you come from the destination, like where the computer is, and you use the toner to to put the location, then you go all the way to communication room, then it gives you you know, like the right place and the right voice. If it has to produce some kind of noise so that you can know it's the right way. So for the mostly that is the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask me after the presentation, after in the Zoom meeting. Thank you so much and have a nice day.